Chetasa sarvakarmani mayi sanyasya matparaha buddhiyogam upashitya machittas satatam bhava machittas sarvadurgani matprasadat tarishyasi atachetvam ahankaran nasroshyasi vinangshyasi. P to P. Pride to power. Many of you possibly been wondering, what could this P to P mean? What is this pride to power all about? Based on the teachings of the Gita, P to P, pride to power, is a transformative journey where there is a shift, a profound shift that happens from temporary alluring pride to enduring authentic strength, where we discover the gateway to divine grace and the keys to overcoming obstacles that come in the pathway to success. We are discussing two important shlokas of the Gita from the 18th chapter. And this title is so very apt because Krishna, through two simple yet profound shlokas, shows us the pathway to success where we can overcome all his obstacles with his divine grace. And at the same time, we make the shift from a state where we are rooted in pride, to a state where we discover our authentic power. This material world presents limitless goals, pleasures, positions, possessions, power. And when we look at it, with too many people chasing too many goals, life simply looks like a rat race. No wonder it is often said that life is a rat race. Unfortunately, in this rat race, there are not many winners. In fact, there are no winners. Even when somebody wins, the elation is short-lived. In this rat race, as long as we continue to compete and run this rat race, we only remain rats. In this race, our self-worth is defined only by our possessions, our positions, our power. Where the worldview is success is all about accumulation and nothing else. Now, talking of a race, it reminds me of another race, a race which we all know. Right from childhood, we have been reading about relishing this race. The race of Hare and Tortoise. How many of you know about this race? Everyone. The tortoise, the hare and the tortoise, where we celebrate the tortoise and we celebrate slow and steady wins the race. But unfortunately, we all have forgotten the hare and we don't bother to get the other side of the story from the hare. So it so happened that one day I happened to meet this hare. I was expecting the hare to be full of sorrow, disappointed, distressed. To my surprise, I found this hare so very happy, so very peaceful, calm, composed. So I was very curious, intrigued. I ended up having a heart-to-heart talk with this hare. So I looked at the hare and said, "Are you the same?" Of course, I am the same who ceremoniously or rather unceremoniously lost the race. I'm the same hare. But unfortunately, people don't come to me asking for my side of the story. Everybody seems to have forgotten me totally. Everybody only talks about the tortoise. Nobody seems to. I said, I'm all ears. He said, I also am curious to know what happened. And then the hare said, you know what? It is a fact that after the race started and I started taking a lead, I did look around and saw the tortoise way back. And I did decide to take a rest a little under the shadow of a tree. And then as I was just about relaxing in the sylvan surroundings there, I don't know if it was a dream or it was a moment of epiphany that all of a sudden I saw a sage approaching me. A sage with flowing beard who approached me and said, "Hey, what are you up to?" And then I said, "Don't you know me? I'm the hare and I'm now engaged in a race. I'm running the race." And the sage then asked, "What for?" He said, "What a stupid question. I'm running the race to win the prize, and most importantly, the prize money. And of course, respect. I want to be known as the fastest hare in this entire forest, maybe on the entire planet." And then the sage looked at me amusingly and then asked, "Do you remember the fastest antelope or the strongest lion or the largest elephant that walked in this forest 1,000 years back?" Then I started to scratch my head and he said, "Not really." "Why do you even run this race? Today it's a tortoise who challenge you to race. Tomorrow there will be a snake which will challenge you to race, and day after it will be the turn of a zebra which will challenge you to race. Are you going to spend your entire life racing?" Now the hare, I started being very interested in this conversation, and the hare said, "Maybe," but then the sage said, "Why do you want to race?" And then I said, "Of course, I want to make money, more money and lots more money. And then after making more and more and more money, one fine day in the future, I will have time to spend together with my family under a beautiful banyan tree, right in front of a serene lake, and experience joy with leaves rustling, with bees buzzing. And then together with my little children, I will hop all around on the green meadows and then jump into the ponds and enjoy." The sage with a smile looked at me and said, "Just turn around and look at your neighbor here. He is doing that right now at this very moment as you speak." The hare said, at that very moment, something happened. Wisdom dawned. Then and there I decided that I am out of the race. And then I withdrew from the race. But let me tell you, when you go and tell the story to others, the hare told me, please pass on my message that I lost the race, but in losing the race, I got back my life. This race, that is a rat race where our self-worth is essentially defined by our own possessions, positions, and power, mythical power. We end up being proud rats in a glamorized rat race. This race is a race of pride. It's a ride of pride. And this pride originates in our misconception of our own identity, misconception of who we are. This pride that originates in our misbelief that we own everything and anything that we only temporarily have with us. everything that is around, everything that we can lay our hands on, anything that we think are our possessions, including our own power, our own talents, our own abilities, including our own bodies, our own minds, our own intellects, all these are only temporary. This ride of pride is so very perilous, right from the beginning till the end, because throughout the ride, we are sentenced to incompleteness. We are sentenced to insecurity. We are sentenced to fear of all kinds. This ride of pride is actually a prison ride, because we spiritual beings who are trapped in human bodies, and then this body becomes a prison for the indwelling spiritual being, the Atman within. And by design, this body is subject to limitations. And when it is subject to limitations, this ride is a ride filled with limitations. And we do not recognize this, knowing that this ride is full of afflictions of all kind. Physical afflictions, mental afflictions. Still, this indwelling spiritual being, the Atman, does not want to get out of this prison. The prisoner does not want to get out of the prison because of two reasons. One, ignorance. Ignorance of our true identity. Ignorance of our true identity and our place in this universe. Our relationship with this universe and with the relationship with the Creator. That's reason one. The second reason is pride, because pride keeps us in ignorance all the time. Because it is said that humility and humility alone is the doorway to knowledge. Knowledge of reality that is presented, bestowed to us by our Shastras, cannot be obtained when we are rooted in pride. And this ride of pride, where the worldview is materialistic, immersed in worldliness, every action that we do is self-centered. I, me, myself. These are the three words that rule our lives. Every action is so very selfish, and unfortunately the concept of self is so very limited to just the body and the mind. For many, it is only the body, not even the mind. And for a few, the concept of self extends beyond the body to the mind. This ride of pride is like riding a bicycle where the tires are fully punctured. Because why? There are energy leaks all the time. Constantly energy is leaking out. Why is this energy leaking out? When the reference point is the ego for every action that we do, in the process of trying to seek control over others, control over people, control over things, we end up wasting so much of our energy. When we are rooted in pride and when the reference point happens to be our ego, knowingly or unknowingly, we end up spending wasteful loads of energy. There is energy leak happening all the time. Loads of energy is spent just to uphold our self-importance. Loads of energy is spent just to protect the illusion of our grandeur. And in that process, we completely miss experiencing the real grandeur of creation, and more importantly, the glory of the Creator. In this ride of pride, the focus is always on what we don't have and not on what we have. And when the focus is always on what we don't have, to every problem, our solution is seeking more. If I happen to throw something at something, I will solve the problem. Seeking more, more and more. And in that process, seeking more itself becomes a problem, not a solution. And this ride of pride happens to be a life of problem solving. And we get to look at life as nothing but a journey of problem solving. Now, problem solving, no doubt, is important. But problem solving cannot be the end. Just like how, if I go to a gym and do exercise and thereby strengthen my body, that strengthening of my body, it's by itself is not the end. I then need to make use of the strengthened body constructively for living life meaningfully and purposefully. Similarly, problem solving by itself is not the end, because as much as we can attempt to solve problems, life presents unsolvable problems. Disease, aging, death, problems that cannot be solved. Therefore, this journey of life is not really meant for problem solving. Then what it is meant for? It is meant for discovery. It is meant for discovering our own true identities. It is meant for discovering our inherent love for Bhagavan. It is meant for re-establishing our connection with the divine. And the only way we can fulfill this purpose of this discovery is when we tap the real power. When we tap the real power, the power of our own consciousness. Only when we elevate our consciousness from the level of the material reality to the spiritual reality. Therefore, life is definitely a ride. It is not a ride of pride, but it is a ride of expanding and elevating our consciousness. Now, this word consciousness by itself is so very complicated. It's not easy for us to immediately relate to. Seems to be a very difficult word, consciousness. What is this consciousness? Consciousness has to be understood as the foundational faculty of awareness. When we say I am conscious, means I am aware. It is our foundational capability. It is like if the Atman is the bulb, the consciousness is the beam of light. The seat and the root of consciousness is the Atman, the indwelling soul, the root R-O-O-T. And the root R-O-U-T-E of consciousness is the mind. Because it is through the mind the consciousness goes out and engages with the world to perceive. Consciousness uses the body and the mind as instruments to be aware, to analyze, to act. So therefore, until and unless we recognize, we are conscious of our consciousness, it is always trapped at the lower level of reality. Our consciousness is trapped at the material level. No, our existence is two-dimensional. We are human beings. We are spiritual beings on a human journey. So our existence is two-dimensional. We have a material dimension and a spiritual dimension, all of us. The body, the mind, the intellect belong to the material realm. They are products of matter, Prakriti. The Atman is a spiritual being. Now, as long as our consciousness is trapped at the material level, we cannot tap its power. As long as it's at a material level, if our consciousness is trapped at the material level, we are swayed by the forces of duality. We are constantly in a state of disturbance, distress, anguish. Because this material world, by design, is subject to dualities. And we get swayed by these dualities as long as our consciousness is trapped at the level of matter. Now, what do we mean by raising our consciousness from the material level to spiritual level? It's like, imagine a building where at the ground floor there is no AC working. And it's hot summer and we are all sweating sitting inside. We are subject to heat, unbearable. It's like a cauldron where we are unable to sit. And then we discover when we go to the top floor, it's nicely air conditioned with a beautiful view all around. So essentially, what do? Immediately we take either stairs or elevator, what is available, we go. So elevating conscious, once we go there, the surrounding heat is still there, but we are still able to engage with the challenges all around. So raising our consciousness from the material to the spiritual essentially helps us to tap this inner power. When we say power, we easily relate to external power. Very difficult to relate to our own inner power. External power, we know. If there are no lights, if the AC is not working, things are not working, we immediately get disturbed very easily. But unknowingly, we remain disturbed all the time because we are not tapping the inner power. Now, everything is functional outside, right? Very nice atmosphere, very comfortable, where we seated, very nice, everything is functional. But if the mind is not here, then there is no purpose of even being here. Now, if the consciousness is trapped at the material level of reality, it gets dragged everywhere all the time. We are at the mercy of the world all the time. And when we are at the mercy, with fluctuations that are happening all the time, heat and cold, pain and pleasure, alternates all the time. This material reality is so very fragile. It is subject to law of changes all the time, law of impermanence all the time. And by identifying ourselves with that which is impermanent, we are always disturbed, because whether we realize it or not, there is a deep longing within each and every one of us. There is a deep longing, there is a desire. And what is that deep down desire? Now, obviously, we have millions of desires, but if we dig deeper, basically peeling away layers and layers of desires, deep within there is one core desire in each and every one of us. And what is that desire? To live forever. Eternal living, everlasting love. All of us have this desire. Where is this desire coming from? In spite of everything around us crumbling all the time, We keep seeing death happening all the time. We keep seeing destruction happening all the time. We keep seeing changes happening all the time. Our own body is changing every day. But deep within there is a desire. Can I remain like this forever? Can I eternally be? Can I exist forever? Now, where is this longing coming from? Knowing that everything around us is impermanent. It's like you go to a village, a tribal village somewhere deep in India, where no civilization whatsoever for hundreds and thousands of years, and you walk in, and then there's a little kid running around and says, "Hey, I want a pizza." You would immediately wonder, right? I mean, where is this desire for pizza coming from? Our longing, this desire for everlasting love and eternal living is like that. Where is this coming from? We need to ask ourselves. It has to come from somewhere. That somewhere is our core. That somewhere is our spiritual core, the seat of our own consciousness. That desire, that longing is rightful longing, because by nature the Atman within is anadi. By nature it is everlasting, blissful all the time. So when the indwelling spiritual being, the Atman, projects its longing onto the impermanent body, that is where the problem happens. Purushaha prakritisto hi bhunte prakritijan gunan karanam gunasangosya sadasadyoni janmasu, Krishna says. This Purusha, this Atman, the spiritual being, when it gets to identify itself with the body made of the three gunas all the time, that identification is so very strong. It is not an identification of one lifetime. It is an identification over innumerable lifetimes. So the identification is so very strong that it completely becomes unaware of its own self. And that is why when I say the consciousness is trapped at the material level, is essentially this misidentification. Now, I often give this analogy where you go to a horror movie. I don't know why we go to a horror movie in the first instance. We want entertainment, but we go to a horror movie. I don't know what kind of a horror. As it is, we have enough horror at home. But we go searching for horror. And then we are thrilled. We are thrilled when the horror movie comes. And after a while, we start shaking, trembling. We identify with the hero or heroine who is put in there in one horror situation. And we start trembling. Why? Because the I there is on the screen. Then lights off and somebody say, "Hey, show khatam." Then we realize, I'm not that. That identification. We may laugh at this identification. We may laugh at ourselves after the show is finished. But then, if we really reflect on our own existence, we have to laugh at ourselves. Because this exactly is the misidentification. So, the consciousness getting trapped at the material level makes us unaware that we are conscious beings. Somebody has to tell us, "Hey, you are conscious beings, you are not in a coma." Only when we recognize our consciousness and the power of our consciousness, and when we direct our consciousness, expand it, elevate it, then we start suddenly realizing that we are not ordinary beings. We are not like animals. We have magical capabilities. We can do miracles. The very fact that I can speak and you can hopefully attentively listen itself is a miracle, which only we, the selected set of living beings on this planet Earth, can do. For this, both for speaking and both for active listening, the consciousness has to rise above certain levels. It has to keep rising. Otherwise, little disturbances will sway us dramatically. And that is the reason why we see in this ride of pride, we are never at ease, never content. We are always disgruntled, disappointed, because we are subject to forces which are dual in nature. Now, taking the analogy of, an ocean, right? I mean, this is the all our masters give this analogy of ocean for samsara, right? Now, when you throw a piece of log, now the ocean has waves going up and down, up and down. The log is mercilessly caught, right? Whichever way the waves take, the log has to go. The wave go up, the log goes up. The wave comes down, the log comes down. We are almost like the log in the ocean of samsara. Whichever way we are taken, by our senses, we go. Now imagine, instead of the log, a person, and let's assume he knows to swim. And this person who is swimming in the wave, in the ocean, is also subject to the forces of these waves. Now, unlike the log, this person will try hard. Of course, after some time he has to give up. He will try hard to overcome the ups and downs. Now imagine this person is given a boat, and he now gets to sit on the boat. Now his situation is slightly better. He is still subject to the ups and downs. He will still go up and down, but at least to some extent he can now navigate his boat. Now imagine he is given a sophisticated, large, motorized boat, which also has a very strong anchor. Now he will not be subject to the waves which are going up and down of the ocean. And now he can navigate, he can deal. Now, in all these cases, the ocean remains the same. The ocean is not changed. Now, we cannot ask the ocean, hey, please, can you be still for me? It will not. The ups and downs of the ocean are going to be there. That's the nature of Prakriti. That's the nature of samsara. But how can we anchor ourselves and deal with the ups and downs of Prakriti is when we recognize the power, inner power, which is the power of our consciousness, and we elevate, we expand and we elevate. And when this elevation of the consciousness happens as we keep going higher and higher, that is when we will be less swayed by the forces of samsara. So therefore, this tapping of this inner power is so very important. Now, how do we tap this inner power is the big question. How do we tap? Somebody asked this question. I said tap. No, they said no. How do we tap? I again said tap. What is tap? A simple acronym. Thoughts, attitude, performance. Thoughts mostly are de-energizing. 99% of our thoughts. First, we are filled with thoughts. Second, 99% of the same time, it is the same negative pattern of thoughts that is constantly running all the time, knowingly, unknowingly. Right? Third, always it is de-energizing. We keep losing energy. That is why even if we don't do anything, sit in an AC room throughout the day, at the end of the day, we are drained completely. So thoughts by design, because first of all, they do not belong to us. They are intruders. We don't recognize them as intruders. Because to me, I and my thought are the same. And when I and my thought are the same, this is where all the problems happen. So they are so very de-energized. So the first thing first step is to actually see how we can cultivate thoughts that are energizing. Coming to a satsang and being part of Bhagavatas helps us to cultivate thoughts that are energizing. When the Govinda bhajan is sung, that energizes the thoughts, the Govinda nama that goes inside energizes us. It's like Krishna nama japa is like keeping us in an air conditioned environment when outside is so very hot. When things around are crumbling, elevating thoughts are going to keep us calm, comfortable. So instead of being trapped by our thoughts, we have to tap our thoughts. This power of ability to choose our thoughts is so very unique to us. Ability to choose which thought I will give my attention to and which thought I will not. It's a very unique ability only we have. So therefore, when we start cultivating energizing thoughts, we also then cultivate an attitude in life by expanding our perspective, where it is not about looking at the world and saying this world is unfair. No, it is very easy to sum up saying this world is unfair because nothing seems to be really happening the way that I want it to happen. So very unfair. So very unfair. When we look at it from a one life perspective, we always see inequities everywhere. Why is this only for him like this? Why it is for him? He's a crook, but he's a millionaire. I am so very noble, but I don't have any money in my pocket. Inequities are so stark. And immediately we ask, it's all because of Krishna. So very impartial he is. But when we expand our perspective and look at it from a multi-life perspective, all of a sudden, we get to see some patterns. And we get to understand that nothing really happens. Every effect has to have a cause. And from a state of life not being fair, we go to develop an attitude where we start seeing a larger purpose at play in everything and anything that happens. This attitude of recognizing a larger purpose is so very important. And it is with that kind of an attitude, with energized thoughts, that we need to perform our duties. That's the third P. This is where Krishna is helping us. Chetasa sarvakarmani, he says. Chetasa, with your consciousness completely directed, elevating your consciousness. Now, immediately we ask, the question to be, are we conscious of where our consciousness is? We need to be first aware, because we are mostly unaware. We are unaware because if we reflect on every choice that we make, we only end up making unconscious choices all the time. We are making choices, but we are making them unconsciously all the time. 99.9999% of our choices. We are not even conscious of where our consciousness is, because it is trapped. It is trapped at the material reality. Just like, do animals have consciousness? Yes, they have, but they are completely trapped and completely covered. It is impossible for them to raise their consciousness. That is the reason why they cannot make choices. They are programmed to behave in certain way. But we are not. So Krishna says, Chetasa sarvakarmani. Mayi Sanyāsa matparaha. Every action that you do, hey Arjuna, first let that action be filled with consciousness of Krishna, knowing that he is the ultimate goal. Matparaha, Mayi Sanyāsa. And offering it to him as a service, which is essentially devotional service. So bhakti, we think, is just doing puja. That is why one of the good definitions of bhakti is devotional service. Devotion, service. Bring two together. Because whatever we do can be done as a service. Anything and everything that we do. The heart is molded by bhakti, and it also molds and shapes the activities that we do. That is, bringing bhakti and karma together becomes kainkarya to Krishna. And it is not difficult at all. No, it is not some Ashtamaha Siddhi or doing some penance one-legged. Everyone and anyone can actually engage. It's so very simple. That is why Krishna gives us very, very simple practical tips. Chetasa sarva karmani, Mayi Sanyāsa matparaha. Matparaha, that is very important. Always anchored to Krishna. The anchor has to be Krishna. Ultimate goal. We can have several goals, but all of them have to come under this umbrella. Buddhi yogam upashritya. Buddhi yoga. No, throughout the Gita, Krishna uses Buddhi yoga in many different ways, and there are different definitions. Buddhi is intelligence. Yoga, yujjate iti yoga. The yoga is the longing of the Atman to unite with the Paramatman. That's yoga. So, anything that we do, ultimately, that should be the purpose of yoga. Unfortunately, today, yoga, the physical yoga that we do, is done for beautification of the body. That is not the real purpose of yoga. The real purpose of yoga is to spiritually evolve, to elevate our consciousness. Even physical activities, the physical yoga, different dimensions to yoga. Buddhi yoga is Krishna talking about applying our intelligence to do bhakti. What does it mean? First of all, we need intelligence, no doubt. We need to take shelter of intelligence, but that is not enough, Krishna says. We need to use intelligence to take shelter of Krishna. Intelligence is given to us so that we can make right choices in everything that we do. And what is the only right choice that we can ever take? Choosing Krishna. That is one choice where we will never go wrong. In whatever situation, whatever condition, whatever circumstance, whatever challenge that is presented to us. So therefore, Buddhi Yoga is using our intelligence to do bhakti to Krishna. Buddhi Yoga upashritya, taking shelter of Krishna. Beautifully he says, use your intelligence, and then with that intelligence take shelter of Krishna. And mat prasadat, everything that comes our way, accept as Krishna prasada. And he says, if when that happens, then I shall ensure that every obstacle that comes your way, everything that comes your way, Machchitta satatam bhava, he says. Machchitta satatam bhava. Raise your consciousness and offer it to Krishna. Constantly keep him at the center of your life. Essentially, today, we all have our own centers in life. For most of the people, it is I am at the center. For some, possibly, we can bring one or two from our own families. But beyond that, our center of life is so very restricted. Krishna basically says, change that center. And when he becomes the center of everything that we do, that is Machchitta Satatam Bhava. I can engage to do anything, no restrictions whatsoever. My occupation can be anything. My profession can be anything. My stage of life can be anything. I can be a student, I can be a homemaker, I can be a CEO, I can be an office boy, I can be anything, doesn't matter. But The center of my world has to be Krishna. And when that happens, and also what happens when he becomes the object of our consciousness? When Krishna becomes the object of our consciousness, he is the most enriching object of our consciousness. Why? Because he is the very embodiment, the ultimate fulfillment for everything that we long. Our longing to be loved, our longing to be loved forever is only fulfilled when he becomes the object of our consciousness. Machchitta satatam bhava. When this happens, then Krishna says how the transformation in the journey happens. The transformation in the journey is so very profound. Machchitta sarvadurgani mat prasadat tarishyasi. This is the greatest assurance that Krishna is giving. Krishna is a master when it comes to giving us messages, very important messages. He gives a prescription, he also gives an assurance. Prescription and assurance always come together. Assuring that this prescription will work for you, no doubt. That's what we need. We need a prescription, we need the assurance as well. Guarantee hai 100%. 200% guarantee. So this assurance, he says, what is the assurance he is giving? Machchitta sarvadurgani mat prasadat tarishyasi. Sarvadurgani. Sarvadurgani is encompassing every kind of an obstacle, every kind of a problem, every kind of a challenge that we can ever imagine, foresee in this samsaric world. Tarishyasi. You can easily pass. You can easily cross over all these obstacles. Mat prasadat, he says. With my grace, you will be able to cross over, pass over all these obstacles. And Krishna also gives a word of caution here. He says, hey Arjuna, atachet tvam ahankaran nasoshyasi vinangshasi. If you continue to be rooted in ahankara, if you are adamant that you want to go on a ride of pride, nasoshyasi, and if you don't listen to this, if you don't heed to this word of advice that is coming from all the shastras, vinangshasi, one will perish. Perishing here is getting lost in this labyrinth of samsara, not able to find a way out. We get trapped in the cycle of repeated births and deaths, completely lost, not able to find out what is the exit out of this. Here Krishna once again is bringing Arjuna back to a very important point. This is the beauty of Gita. Wherever we go, that is why, irrespective of what point you join the study of Gita, the entry point can be anywhere in the Gita. It need not be the first shloka, first chapter. It can be any shloka, any chapter. Because why? Krishna beautifully weaves all his messages in such a way that he always keeps coming back to the same point to once again remind Arjuna, hey Arjuna, the answer to your question with which we started this samvada, this discourse. What is the question? What is the right thing to do? This is what we always want to know. The only question that we have in our life is, what is the right thing to do? Krishna says, this is the answer. The right thing to do is don't listen to your ego, listen to me. That's the right thing to do. And when you only listen to Krishna's word, then you access his grace. And with his grace, then you can cross over you can surmount, you can overcome any kind of obstacles. Natachetvam ahankaran nasoshyasi vinangshasi. The trajectory of life, when we ride this, when life becomes a ride of pride, life takes a very unfortunate trajectory. In our youth, we are in a hurry. In our middle age, we are in a state of worry. And when old age hits, we have a feeling of sorry. This is life's trajectory. In our youth, we think we can bend this world. And we want to do so many things. So many things. Everything and anything. We are running, rushing, chasing, without really realizing the real priorities of life. And unfortunately, there is no support system, there is no education system that can also help the youth to stop this maddening rat race. So, state of hurry. And then, after all that, we reach a state, middle age comes. Then we start realizing, after all, it's not that I have control over everything. I thought I can control everything. Little wisdom comes, I say, oh, there are many things which are beyond my control. And suddenly we see, look back, 40 years have gone in life, and then, oh my God, I'm still incomplete. I don't know. I have become a general manager, I have 2 houses, I am so comfortable, I am in Dubai, but still why I am very incomplete? That worry is still there. And then slowly old age creeps in. And then one gets into the trajectory, takes us to a feeling of sorry. Missed opportunities, guilt, anguish. If only I would have, in my age of 16, if I would have done that, my life would have taken a different turn. All analysis paralysis. Everything happens. And we feel sorry that a life of 60, 65 years have gone by and I don't know. Have I reached my destination? I don't even know what my destination is. Forget about reaching the destination. So therefore, Krishna, what is the solution to this? Machitta sarvadurgani mat prasadat tarishyasi. Krishna simply says, when the life's trajectory is nothing but hurry, worry and sorry, the simplest thing to do is invite Sri Hari. When Sri Hari walks into your life, then you don't need to be hurry anymore now, because your priorities start to become very clear. You're not chasing endless things. Then you also start to realize that you don't need to really worry, because He is there. He is there guiding you. He is there giving you the assurance that you need, when you need, at your own pace, at your own place. He is there, accessible to you. We don't need to go to Tirumala. He will come to us. He is there, here, right here, amidst us, listening to us, supporting us, encouraging us, nourishing us. And also, when He is there, with His presence felt, we are no longer sorry for missed opportunities, because we realize that opportunities that we have missed in the past, those materialistic opportunities, even if they would have worked out, the results would have been very temporary. And now I see new opportunities to discover my identity, to re-establish my connection with Krishna, and to understand the purpose and meaning of life. Whether we realize it or not, the maximum amount of time cycles in the mind is dedicated, I am using the word dedicated unfortunately, but dedicated to worrying. Loads and amount of time, all kinds of worry, all grades. Some worries are frivolous, some worries are deep rooted and energy sapping, but we may not realize it. Loads and loads of time, enormously counterproductive. All that Krishna is saying, shift from worrying to praying. If only we prayed as much time as we spend time worrying, our quality of life would be so good. We do pray, few minutes maybe. Those of us who are blessed can possibly pray for a few hours. But if you have to put the time for worrying and time for praying, no comparison. So essentially when he says, Machittaha sarvadurgani, mat prasadat tarishyasi. He says, pray to Sri Hari. Don't be in a hurry. You don't need to feel worry and sorry. But then when we start praying diligently, there is another new problem that comes. We start praying to Krishna. And when we start praying to Krishna, our expectations from Krishna also keeps growing. Krishna, today you have given me this. Now I am giving you a challenge. Tomorrow you have to give me double X. We start now setting goals to Krishna. We start to such an extent that we start to write God's job description. I don't know if Krishna has written his own job description. All of us have. Unfortunately for him, each of us have our own job descriptions for Krishna. No, he needs to now fulfill all of this. So we keep doing that. We don't realize that this relationship is so very special. Now, distantly, if you have to take an analogy, it's a relationship between a doctor and a patient. Both the doctor and the patient have a common purpose, both understand. But when it comes to the procedure of the treatment, hopefully it's the doctor's prerogative. But some of us are very intelligent there also. We do all Googling. Unfortunately, with Google and with everything on our mobile phone, before we go to a doctor's appointment, we do our own analysis. We even print reports. Now we can measure everything, right? And before we meet, we say, doctor, I think this is better, you do this. Then doctor, why did you even come to me? It has to be very clear that in that relationship, the job description of the patient has to be written by the doctor, not the patient writing the doctor's job description. Similarly, Krishna is the most benevolent doctor. We are all patients in samsara. We think we are physically healthy, but we have this sickness, samsaric sickness. And we need to realize that this doctor treats us in very many different ways. Sometimes he gives us sweets. We go to Tirupati, he gives us laddus. Please eat as many laddus as you want. You go to Triplicane Pathsarthi Swami temple, they give so much of Chakravarthy, sweet rice with a lot of cashews. Sometimes sweets, sometimes bitter medicines. Sometimes very severe adversities that we face in life. It's like surgery. Doctors not only have to give medicines, he has to give injection, he has to do surgery, all kinds of treatment. Krishna also does the same. We need to recognize that every experience that we have is actually part of Krishna's treatment. Even when an unimaginable adversity befalls us, once we have this perspective, things change. When we have this perspective that I, the Atman, I the soul, I am part of the whole, Krishna, and I am part of a cosmic order, and as long as I keep doing my little, minute, tiny part in this cosmic order, the underlying wisdom of which is beyond me, when I keep doing it, the whole will take care of the part. Our welfare is in his hands. And in that process, then, even when an adversity befalls, instead of asking the question, why this is happening to me, why me, the shift happens and I start asking the question, how can I do something better? How can I serve him even during this adversity? It completely changes. So therefore, it becomes extremely important to look at how Krishna is giving this prescription of tapping this inner power of consciousness by completely offering it to him when our consciousness is at his level, completely filled with him. That is what that way. Machitta satatam bhava. And when that happens, he says, what does he say? I give you my shelter. Now, this is where we also have to understand when Krishna says, Machitta sarvadurghani, when you are completely connected with me, always thinking about me, you are conscious, you are aware of Krishna's glories, Krishna's presence, and our relationship with him. And in that, rooted in that awareness, when you go about leading your life and living, he says, you will be able to cross over all your obstacles, but all your problems will be managed. Now, very important point here we need to recognize. We immediately say, my problems still persist. I am completely devoted to Krishna. My problems seem to not be going away. Life is still filled with problems, one after the other, one after the other. There's always the magnitude of the problem may change, but it seems to be filled with problems. This is where once again we need to go back to the shloka and see what Krishna is saying. He says, Machitta sarvadurghani mat prasadat tarishyasi. Tarishyasi means cross over. He's only saying we can cross over the problems. We can cross over the obstacles. Krishna is offering a shelter, not a hiding place. Very important to realize. We cannot hide from our problems, because whether we realize it or not, this samsaric world, which is subject to dualities, problems are going to be, obstacles are going to be there. It is not about removal of obstacles. Krishna is promising a boat, but he is not promising a stormless sea. The storm is going to be there. The winds are going to be there. Tsunami is going to be there. The waves going up and down are going to be there. But what he is promising? A boat which will take us. Tarishyasi. This is the assurance he is giving. Because he is not going to change the world for our sake. The world is, as it should be. We don't need to question why it is happening, because it is beyond our capabilities of understanding, comprehending the cosmos. But one thing we can board the ship called Krishna. And when that happens, he says, I will cross over. I will ensure that you cross over. It seems there was this very peculiar custom thousands of years back in the city of Kashi. This is a fictional story. So I want to just end the discourse with a story so that you can take this message back home. Very peculiar practice. Maybe some of you heard this story. But what was this peculiar practice? Anybody and anyone can become a king. But there was only one condition. After 5 years, the king was unceremoniously dragged. He was put in a boat and he was taken across to the other bank of Kashi, where there was a forest infested with wild animals. So that king was put to prey and he becomes a food. Now, there was this boatman who has been taking, after every 5 years, the doomed king to the other side. So he knows the state of the king. Every king who comes, who's dragged, is crying, struggling. He is, in a hysteria because he knows that he's going to die. Now, one fine day, after 5 years of rulership of a king, this king walks in. He says, no, you don't need to drag me and all. Let me walk into my boat. So this boatman sees this king so very composed, so very calm. And as he's rowing the boat and taking him across the bank, he's asking this king, I have never seen in my life, I have taken 20, 30, 40 kings across and put them, given as a prey to the animals out there. But I've never seen someone so happy, so serene. What is happening? Do you think you can even escape? No, if you think you can escape, it is impossible. You can never escape. The king says, possibly you've not noticed what's been going on the on the river Ganga. Ever since I became the king, I decided to do few things. The first year, I arranged for some very skilled hunters to be sent across to kill all the animals. The second year, I chose some very skilled artisans, masons, carpenters to go and build a nice town inside the forest so that they can build beautiful gardens, beautiful palaces and all that. The third, then the second and third year. The fourth year, I sent chosen ministers so they can go and set up how that new kingdom should be ruled. Fifth year, I also sent some chosen loyal subjects who are waiting there for me. So I am actually going there to continue ruling. Essentially, the moral of the story is very simple. We are all prisoners of our past, no doubt. We all have this question, this karma, prarabdha, all this. We are prisoners of our past. We think we are prisoners of our past. We are actually products of our past. But we need not be prisoners of our past. This is the difference. How do we get this freedom from this prison? Only when we tap the inner power. This journey of P to P, pride to power. What is this power? The power of our own consciousness. And when do we access this power? When our consciousness is connected to Krishna. It's like, I don't know how many of you are in the IT industry. Long ago, there used to be dumb terminals connected to back-end mainframes. There was nothing, no hard disk, no power or anything here. But it used to do wonders because all the power was coming from mainframes. Now, same is the case today and also with the internet, right? You have simple devices, but you can crunch a lot of power. Power is coming from the back end. Now, this real power is accessing this supercomputer, the supreme power. And therefore, you can stop being prisoners of your own past when you start looking at how to expand and elevate your consciousness, direct your consciousness. And when you start doing that, what is the most simple way? This is what we want to know. We always want to know the simplest way of doing this, simplest way of, what is the recommendation of the Shastras? Krishna Nama Smarana. Constant remembrance, blissful remembrance of Krishna will give us first a cushion. First, it will become a cushion for us. Then it will counter. First, it will be a cushion with all the forces around. Then it will become a counter push to all the forces around. Finally, it will start crushing all the forces around. And with that, we blissfully travel on this boat of Krishna. And irrespective of what happens, the world will continue to operate the way it should be. And our compass shows the right direction, the right destination. With our consciousness connected with Krishna and experiencing Him blissfully throughout the journey, it is assured that destination Krishna can be attained. Sarvam Sri Krishna Arpanamastu.